He slid those divorce papers across the table with that same smug look he always wore, thinking he'd finally beaten me in my own life, not knowing the world was about to flip upside down yet. That happened. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom, except for the judge shuffling through my father's will, a sealed envelope that was about to rewrite both our stories. I watched Marcus Me, soon-to-be, sitting across from me, suit immaculate, hair perfectly in place, grinning like the cat who got the cream. He always figured he knew exactly what I was worth, what my family was worth, and after years together, he still thought I was just some small-town girl grateful to have him. But let me back up a sec, because to understand how satisfying this ending is, you gotta know where it started and what I had to lose. 3 years earlier, I was a different Sarah. I still believed in fairy tales, or at least in happy endings. I was a high school English teacher, barely scraping by after losing my dad, and Marcus swooped in like Prince Charming at a gala neither of us belonged to. He dazzled me-lavish dinners, big promises, the kind of proposal you see in movies, all grand gestures and diamond rings, so big they looked fake. I said yes, without blinking, not realizing that fairy tales sometimes hide their villains in the nicest suits. At first, the red flags felt like confetti. Marcus called my job cute, teased me for caring about students, acted like his business deals were the only thing that mattered. When I mentioned wanting to be a principal, he'd smile and say, "Why stress yourself, babe? I'll take care of us." Back then, I thought he was just being protective, you know what I mean? After we got married, his jokes turned sharp, especially when his friends were around. "Oh, Sarah's just a teacher," he'd say, and every just cut a little deeper. When I tried joining their conversations, he'd interrupt, "Let the adults talk, sweetheart," and his buddies would laugh while I disappeared into the kitchen. What stung most wasn't his attitude toward me, but how he disrespected my dad's memory. My father wasn't rich or powerful, but he was everything good, steady, loving, the guy who always showed up, even if all he had to give was his time. Marcus never missed a chance to remind me how blue-collar my family was. Not everyone can be successful, Sarah. Whenever I get sad about Dad, he'd say, "Move on already. You can't change your background." But my dad taught me a person's worth is about character, not bank statements. Marcus never got that. The first couple years, I tried to ignore the growing distance. He worked late, always on his phone, always some urgent client. The romance vanished, no more dinners, no more interest, just two people sharing space, but not much else. I kept myself busy at school. My students needed me, and there's nothing like seeing a kid believe in themselves for the first time. I'll never forget Maria, a girl on the verge of dropping out, whose life turned around after months of extra help. She hugged me after getting her college scholarship, told me I'd change her life. That kind of moment reminded me who I really was, no matter what Marcus said. But at home, his voice was the only one I heard. He'd say, "You should be grateful I saw potential in you." I started to believe him. The turning point? One night in March, I came home excited to share good news about a student and found Marcus in his office laughing on the phone. He said, "She has no idea. She's so naive it's almost cute. When we divorce, she'll get nothing. I'll even get that land her dad left her. She signed it over for the mortgage and doesn't get what that really means." I stood frozen, listening as he bragged about controlling me, about cashing out, after 3 years of pretending to love someone so boring and ordinary. That was the moment my heart broke, not just for myself, but forever believing his act. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he kissed me goodbye as usual, and I called in sick, pulled out every financial document I could find, and started piecing together the puzzle. It was worse than I thought. Over 3 years, Marcus had shifted everything into his name: our house, our accounts, even my father's land. I found papers I'd signed without thinking, documents that handed him control of everything I'd ever owned. My stomach twisted, realizing how thoroughly he'd planned all this from the start. A week later, he sat down with me, all charm and fake concern, and said, "We need to talk." He wanted a divorce, claimed it would be quick and painless. He handed me a manila envelope settlement papers that would leave me with next to nothing, while he kept the house, the cars, the investments, and yes, my father's land. He assured me, I'd be taken care of. I kept my voice steady, asked for time to think, but inside I was raging. That night, I read every line. The settlement gave me barely enough to rent a cheap apartment. Marcus got everything else. And the prenup? Ironclad unless I could prove fraud or something he'd hidden. I decided I wasn't going down without a fight. I reached out to Margaret Willis, a tough-as-nails divorce attorney recommended by a colleague. She listened, then told me straight. We're up against it. But tell me about the land. I shrugged it off, just empty acreage with a rundown barn. Nothing special, or so I thought. She insisted we get it appraised and start digging into my father's finances. Sometimes, people have surprises they don't know about, she said. 2 weeks later, Margaret called, her voice shaking with excitement. Sarah, sit down. That land? Turns out there's a natural gas deposit under Itenergy companies have been sniffing around for years. And that's not all. Your dad set up a trust fund in your name. The bank couldn't find you because of your married name. That account has grown to over $2 million. I dropped the phone. My dad, who lived paycheck to paycheck, had quietly invested and planned for decades, all to protect me. He saw further than I ever did. When the divorce hearing started, Marcus strutted in with his high-priced legal team, playing the generous husband for the judge, acting like he was throwing me a bone. Your Honor, my client is offering a fair settlement, considering Mrs. Chen's minimal contributions, his lawyer said, and Marcus nodded, like he was doing me a favor. Margaret advised me to stay quiet, let them get comfortable, wait for the perfect moment to reveal our cards. Final hearing Thursday morning, October. Marcus looking smug, thinking he'd already won. Judge Hendricks was sharp, not the type to fall for cheap tricks. When Marcus's lawyer argued the land should be sold to pay off our mortgage, Judge turned to me. I stood, hands trembling, and said, Your Honor, there's information you need to see. Margaret produced the new appraisal, the trust fund records, and, for good measure, a recording of Marcus' phone call about his plan to defraud me. The color drained from Marcus's face as the judge read the numbers, aloud millions, not thousands. That's when the whole courtroom seemed to exhale. Judge Hendricks declared the prenup void, awarded me half of all marital assets, ordered Marcus to pay my legal fees, and ruled that both the trust and land were mine alone, protected by law, thanks to my father's foresight. Marcus looked shattered, pleading with the judge, but it was too late. Fraud destroys everything. Outside the courthouse, Marcus tried one last time. Sarah, this is all a misunderstanding. We can work this out. I finally saw him clearly, not as the man I'd loved, but as the man who tried to erase everything I was. No, Marcus, the only misunderstanding was me thinking you loved me, I said. You loved having control, but you never knew me at all. He begged, said he was wrong, that he saw my worth now. You were wrong about everything, I told him, especially about my dad. Turns out, he left me everything I needed, including the strength to walk away. And with that, I left him standing there, smaller than I'd ever seen him. You know, I didn't feel angry anymore, just free. My dad's last gift wasn't money or land, but a belief in myself I'd almost forgotten. The letter attached to the trust said he knew someone might try to take advantage, so he'd built in protections I didn't even know existed. Even from the grave, he was still looking out for me. Real wealth, he'd written, isn't about what you can show off. It's about who you become and what you do for others. In the end, the people who underestimate us the most are the ones who push us to prove them wrong, but the real victory isn't showing them. It's finally believing it yourself. So, tell me who decides what we're worth. Is it money, love, or something deeper? Drop your thoughts below, because I'm still figuring it out myself. And if you know someone who needs this story, share it. Sometimes, justice really is poetic if you're patient enough to see it through.